What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Encore. I'm your host, Ben Schneider. Alongside one of our guest panelists tonight, Tanner Smith, we absorb the Cup Series recap since the race on Sunday night last night was too late for a traditional wrap-up show. So happy to have Tanner on with us, as well as Brandon Crossland, who was at the track this weekend. Brandon, how's it going? Good to see you again. How was your weekend?
Hey, good to see you. Another Motor Monday here on Grid Encore. Yes, this weekend was it was a privilege to be a part of my first ever NASCAR weekend as part of the press in the media center for the weekend, and working next to tons of familiar faces and names was just a privilege again. And I just want to thank Raceface Digital for allowing me to experience that. And basically, it was really just what it amounts to is like a 3-day riding boot camp for me. Because, you know, I've been getting back into the riding game here since March here from remotely, but to be there, boots on the ground, and to have to, you are there till you're done with it and you leave, that sort of pressure, and having the access to the drivers and the media bullpen breakout session was probably the most stressful thing, because it's just not even controlled chaos. It's really just chaos. And whenever a new driver comes in, they just say their name and they all rush over, and you kind of have to earn your place there to, get a good view. And those professionals that do that week in and week out, they have a really tough job, and they carry it with such confidence that we won't really understand. I think I don't think I ever want to be a part of the full circus like that. But like a few other folks there, we got to work with, made good friends with Peter Strada and other gentlemen like that. Eric Estep, Danny B. Talks. We all kind of made a little table with ourselves there, and we made a good weekend of it. Also, shout out to CBS Sports, Steven Toronto. He was a good friend to me as well. And kind of going into it solo for the weekend, it was good to have some allies, that you could tag along with and kind of see how they navigate the day. But overall, a great experience. I want to thank Jacob Seelman of Raceface Digital and Seth Eggert and everyone there for allowing me to go represent them. And the cool part as well was getting footage and things that they can use for sidebar stories. So it was good for the whole team there.
Yeah, well, I know exactly what you're talking about, having done this at Portland with this network and this outlet, and of course Sonoma the last few years as well with Brock Beard and lastcard.info. It's not an easy job, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for those that are on the road 38 weeks out of a year. And I can tell you, just going back on that West Coast swing back-to-back weekends has worn me out. I think I'm with you. I don't know, but I ever want to be on the traveling circus, as you put it, for all those weeks. But just increased my respect. Not that I didn't have that respect before, but for everybody that does that. So glad that you got that experience, and glad to have Tanner on the show tonight as well. Tanner, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. And Brandon, I'm glad you got that experience. I got to do the same thing for Pitbox Press last year at Kansas, and man, it was phenomenal, but scary at the same time. Yeah. So I'm glad that you were able to find a nice little pod to hang out with and kind of, help you get up to speed and everything. Because, man, if I didn't have Jeff Gluck showing me around last year, I would have been so lost. So
it's brutal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not only that, I kind of agree with you. The folks that do it 38 weeks out of the year, my hat's off to them, because it is a tough job to even do for a weekend, let alone 38. And you're constantly having to generate new questions to come up with to make interesting content for people to read and to watch. So it makes everything a lot more challenging when you've got to do that literally every single week for 7 straight months.
Yeah, it's a different breed there. I like the part-time feel of it, but I really don't know if I could take on the whole thing. Also, shout out to Brock Beard as well for taking some of my JJ Yaley pictures and video to put in his article for the weekend. That was one of those "It's Alive" stories where it came back and got back into the race.
All right. Well, on that note, let's get into it here with the NASCAR Cup Series, which we start with tonight. And it was Ryan Blaney taking the race win, really a dominant statement victory, given everything that's going on with Team Penske in recent weeks on the IndyCar side of things, our NASCAR program unshaken. And as Marty Snyder was sure to remind us, it punches Ryan Blaney's ticket to the NASCAR playoffs. Tanner, we'll start with you since you're our guest tonight. How big of a statement is this for Team Penske, given all the controversies they've been involved in on the IndyCar side, to have all three of their drivers with their tickets punched to the playoffs on the NASCAR side of the program?
Well, it's also not to forget about the first team of theirs that punched their ticket in the Wood Brothers 21 car at Las Vegas.
There you go.
So
yeah.
Not only that, they've got 4 drivers in the postseason. They're the only team in the current series right now to have all of their drivers in the postseason. Just to kind of tip back to the question at hand, though, obviously, I feel like Blaney's win has just kind of been a long time coming this season. He's had speed at practically every race that we've been to, outside of notable examples being Coda, Martinsville, and Charlotte. And even at Martinsville and Charlotte, he had top 10 pace that, if you obviously break well on pit strategy, you can find yourself up racing for the lead and win the race. So this is just a testament to Team Penske's way of doing things. They believe in doing everything, a certain way, and preparation is always, the precedent to luck. So I find that Team Penske and Ryan Blaney and the 12 team particularly, kind of continuing their hard work that they've been toiling away at all off season and into this season, to find that speed that they've shown at practically every racetrack. I just feel like at a certain point, you keep preparing and you keep doing the things the right way, you eventually find yourself in victory lane in the NASCAR Cup Series, in spite of all the chaos. And last night was a testament to that. So I definitely think that for Ryan Blaney and the 12 team, they'll be pretty excited to move forward throughout the rest of the regular season. They've got 12 more races to rack up more playoff points and, crucially, move themselves up further in the seeding for the playoffs. So definitely a big hats off to Jonathan Hassler and Ryan Blaney. Fantastic weekend out of them. It's about time that they get a win when they had the best car.
Yeah, you're right, Tanner. It really was a win for both of them together, Ryan and Jonathan Hassler there on the pit box. And also coming into this weekend with the win after 5 DNFs on the season, they were, it was kind of the same sort of thing for Carson Hocevar, where right, they're doing the right things, but not getting the result to show for one reason or the other, or just not getting the win in yet, and getting that weight lifted off their shoulders, knowing that they're good to go, realistically for the playoffs. But yeah, he also Ryan also talked about how heartbreaking it is to see that the whole IndyCar thing happen for Team Penske and for the organization to go through that. It's all in that same shop, and so when one of them is hurting, they all are, and so they all rally around each other, and it's kind of apparently always been that way, that that they all have each other's back on whatever discipline they're involved in. But it was a really good win for Ryan Blaney and the 12 team, and to get that moving in, and also to have all 4 of the Penske cars have a victory, if you include the satellite of Josh Berry.
Yeah, and I'm glad, Brandon, that you brought up Carson Hocevar as well. Great run for him. Great run for a lot of these guys up here in the top 5 and top 10. Bubba Wallace, very emotional when he was interviewed on the Prime post-race show. And Tanner, I know we were talking backstage. We've all been very impressed, I think, with the coverage of Prime's given us the last 2 races. I think you said you had to nitpick one thing. It was that they didn't highlight Eric Jones a little bit more after a strong run. But he was up there in 7th place as well. So some good runs for a couple of Toyota drivers that desperately needed them. But on that note, I want to ask both of you guys, I think one thing that's kind of gotten lost in, how great Penske is the fact that they are the 3-time defending champions of the Cup Series with Joey Logano's titles in 2022 and 2024, as well as Ryan Blaney in 23. And given that they all have wins, even their satellite car, like both of you mentioned with Josh Berry and the Wood brothers at this point in the year, maybe some would argue they're peaking a little bit too early. But given how strong Team Penske has been in recent years at Phoenix, I think that if there's anybody that can ride that wave of momentum for these next several months to the point where they're still capable of doing this when it comes time to decide the champion, Team Penske would be at the top of that list. So, Tanner, do you think Penske maybe doesn't get enough credit for this three-peat that they're on, looking to maybe four-peat with any one of their drivers who now, as we mentioned, of course, are all locked into the postseason?
Yeah, but I do think there is a reason for that. The precedent that they've kind of set for themselves over these past 3 seasons and coming into this year is that they start off profoundly slow, normally with Blaney, sometimes Logano, obviously creeping into the top 5 in the first 12 to 15 races. And then June comes along and they start winning. This year, it seems like they kind of came out of the box with a lot more speed. And I think, some credit needs to be pointed towards Josh Berry and Miles Stanley and that entire 21 team kind of raising their profile. I think that having 4 strong cars each week helps all 4 cars. I know that sounds insane, but when you have a strong team, a stronger team than you had the last 3 years, it tends to help all of the organization. So I think that a lot of the teams that, race against them, they probably just discard the Penske cars up to June, May, that part of the year, because traditionally in the next gen era, they just haven't shown up. So I think that they don't really get the attention in the early part of the season that really should be surrounding like defending champions, especially since the organization has now won 3 in a row and has completely dominated the next gen era for championships. But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of warranted, but this year it seems they've turned a corner as an organization. I think a lot of that has to do with this being the 4th year of the next gen car and the 2nd year of the Dark Horse body being fitted to the Ford cars. So I think that there's been like less tinkering with the regulations as opposed to 2022 where everybody was learning everything, 2023 where we started to fiddle with the parts and pieces a little bit and the shell of the car, 2024 when they had a new model, 2025 is the first year that Ford has really had a complete year of stasis with their program. So I think when you combine the fact that Josh Berry has come to the team and helped elevate them, when you combine the fact that they have had, this bit of stasis and consistency with their product, I think that those factors kind of combine to push them along to this point of the year. So if I were the rest of the field, I'd be a little concerned that Ryan Blaney and maybe to a lesser extent Joey Logano are probably going to start winning a lot more races here in the next 12 weeks, but obviously we'll have to see what the how everything plays out, because as we learned last year, 1 overtime finish can quickly spiral into 5 and some random can make it into the championship 4 because of it. So I'm just really interested to see how that team performs throughout the rest of the regular season, if they can continue to carry it into the postseason.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. But it does say something that I didn't really think about the last 3 Cup champions being all from Team Penske. It just, it's not really said out loud, I think, as much as it could be. But maybe I'm not listening in the right places. But yeah, they've dominated the next gen, the Gen 7. It's Gen 7. It's 4 years. We're into it now. And they're tracking to have a really good shot at 4 in a row. But yeah, they deserve that credit there. They've earned it here, and I can remember, you're right, Tanner, exactly. Like the last few times that it's happened, it's like, well, the Fords haven't found a Ford win here. Like not just Penske, like Ford completely like struggling in some of these next gen years, and you talked about the stasis sort of leveling out now, and they've got got it to where they're kind of stronger than they've been in quite some time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. When did we start calling the car of tomorrow the car of today, or the Gen 5 car? Because car of tomorrow got kind of outdated pretty quickly once it was introduced. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Obviously, keep an eye on Team Penske as the season goes on. They do seem to have a knack for getting hot at the right time and winning the right races at the right time, or being in the right place at the right time, as Joey Logano found out last year at the Roval after Alex Bowman was disqualified. That led him back into the round of 8. And he went on to run the table from there and go all the way. So you just never know what's going to happen in this postseason that NASCAR has with this playoff system. But Team Penske certainly looking like championship favorites if the postseason were to start today. But of course, we know it doesn't. So you can stay tuned for Grid Live wrap-up for continued coverage of the Cup Series all season long. We move on now to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And another familiar winner here, Justin Allgaier, picking up the 28th victory of his career in the number 7 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet. We've talked a lot about Allgaier on this show over the years. He's been very strong in Xfinity Series competition, is the defending champion of the series. And he was on Kenny Wallace's podcast this week and seemed to suggest that the end might not be too far off for the longtime Junior Motorsports driver. Take a listen to what he had to say.
But it sounds to me like Jeremy's going to outrun me. I'm going to congratulate him. Then you're going to outrun Jeremy, and Jeremy's going to have to congratulate you. What do you think?
I think Jeremy's got this one in the bag, to be honest. I'm super proud of how many starts I have. I don't know what the number is currently. I think
482. You have 482 starts.
Yeah, I can't get there. I can't get to your number. Not with where my head's at and what I believe is my.
We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. Keep going. Racing. Why did you say you don't think you're going to break my record?
I've watched my dad grow this business for my entire life, and there were opportunities for him to sell, and there were opportunities for him to get out. And, he's asked me point blank years ago, he said, is this something you see yourself doing? Is this something you want to do? And it's always been 100% yes.
All right. Mike Allgaier, his father, was part of that interview as well. Justin talking about maybe going to work for his family business. And for reference, Kenny Wallace at 547 career starts. Allgaier would be on pace to break that record in 2027, unless Jeremy Clements does it first in 2026. Brandon, I'll start with you here. Justin Allgaier's an Xfinity Series champion, 28 wins. He needs 3 victories and another title to reach the mark that Jack Ingram set. Jack Ingram is in the Hall of Fame. We've had this conversation before, but I'll ask the question again. Do you see Justin Allgaier as a future Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. I don't need to have much hesitation to say that. And the fact that he only needs 3 more wins and 1 more title to tie Jack Ingram, who's already in the Hall of Fame. That's the kind of question. That's one of those things I struggled with so badly, was like having the lack of brain power, I guess, to figure out what I need to ask. What could I possibly ask? Well, there's a great question right there that could have been asked, and I don't think anyone even mentioned the name Jack Ingram. But man, he was such a joy there post race, and it just seems like someone like he was like the most pleasant of them all, really. Second to Rajah, which we'll get to later, but just really one of the most pleasant of them all to have in there and talking about his win and talk so much about his family. And that's why he's a Saturday guy, I think, mainly, is he wants that time with his 2 daughters and his wife, and he's got that foundation built, and he doesn't need too much more to be considered for the Hall of Fame as it stands. But that championship title, we've talked about it before on this show. That's one of those things that was lacking. He's got that now. Anything more is just making it more impressive, and he only needs a few more to tie a Jack Ingram.
Yeah, just to kind of pick up where Brandon left off, I also agree that, in my personal opinion, I think that Justin Allgaier should absolutely be a Hall of Famer one of these days. Him not being able to make up the amount of starts leads me to believe that the soon-to-be 39-year-old is about to retire at some point here in the near future. So that second title might be a little bit harder to come by, but I think that in the movement to make the Xfinity Series kind of seem like the, second series as the, part of the ladder for NASCAR, that we kind of lose track of the accomplishments that drivers like Justin Allgaier have kind of put together through building their career there. And I feel like when you see the fact that he's won, I think 28 races on top of his championship since he, kind of revitalized his career by going to Junior Motorsports in 2016. I really just don't think that we as like a collective media have really done a whole lot to kind of celebrate that. And I find that to be profoundly unfortunate. I think that Allgaier has shown speed at practically any kind of track. It seems like he really knows how to make a car go fast as long as you are really willing to work with him on the mechanical level to get the car up to speed. And him and Jim Pullman together are a dynamic duo at this point. So, yeah, I think that Allgaier absolutely deserves a seat in Charlotte one of these days where he can get his jacket and give his speech. I just hope that by that time we'll have had a bit more of a collective celebration for more of the lifers that currently exist in the Xfinity and Truck Series, because I really just don't think they really get enough credit.
All right, let's get caught up on the. Sorry, just does somebody want to follow up?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, that might have been.
I think that was a dog. That was a dog.
Yeah.
The dog would like a word.
We're all good then. Let's get caught up on the chat real quick. Adam Lemery saying, "Good evening, gentlemen. Enjoyed all the content from Nashville. Brandon, which driver was cool to interview?" I think Brandon, you said it. I think in your answer, I think you said Allgaier was.
I never actually got to. I never gave a question to Allgaier. I guess I couldn't think of one that wasn't already brought up. That was kind of the case for me this weekend, being so green to the media center. But the coolest one to interview. I mean, the only one I actually talked to that was a race winner was Rajah Caruth, and I just asked him about, would you be able to take your experience from being in the playoffs in 2024, now that you know that you have another shot at it this year, is there anything that you would do that you think you and the team are going to do differently? And he was basically like, well, no, not too much. I have six notebooks of notes, or basically is what that amounted to. Like we've got a process, and I trust in it. So that was probably the most impactful one. And also asking Daniel Suarez about any extra Tootsie's festivities going on. He was like, if we win the race, we're going to Tootsie's. And that was it. So.
All right, there you go. And I am so glad Matthew Owens is in the chat right now. Behind the mic is Justin Hall of Fame or Hall of Very Good? That was a question that was raised. I think Jeff Brown was the one that replied to my tweet about that. I guess it depends on how you define Hall of Famer and where you think that threshold should be. But like I said, I think if Jack Ingram is in, Allgaier's stats seem to be backing it up. He seems to be getting very close to that mark that has been set. And if you want more thoughts that I have on the Hall of Fame and where that mark should be at, you can go check out the recent podcast episode that I did with Brock Beard here. I think that was Tanner says that was his dog, and he's got to go check on his dog here. So we'll give him just a moment. But Brandon, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the question that Matthew has posted here. And then Matthew, I'm glad you're in the chat because one of your tweets this weekend, I think, sparked an interesting conversation as well. We're about to get to that in just a moment. But Brandon, first, you want to follow up on this?
I feel like it's a Hall of Fame. Sorry, Matthew. I think I have to stand by what I had already said there. Not only that, but what we're about to get to, I think also adds to it as well. Like he's a really lovable guy by a majority of the fan base. It's hard to have a bone to pick with Justin Allgaier. And I think that it's not an on-track thing, but it definitely has to be taken into consideration somewhere in there by the Hall of Fame panel when they decide who makes it into these things. Is how well were you received with the fans? What did you do off the track that made you that gave you legendary status? If you take my meeting there, what kind of impact did you make as a personality, and how did the fans feel about you?
Yeah, and I think it's impossible to tell the story in full of the Xfinity Series without Justin Allgaier and Jack Ingram as well, to be fair. And so I think you take all of that into consideration. Obviously, stats are a big part of it, but I think he's got those too. So I think, and again, like I always say, it's not the Cup Hall of Fame. If it were the Cup Hall of Fame, the guy did 2 seasons with H. Scott Motorsports and a couple of one-offs here and there since then, and that's pretty much it. But thankfully, it's not the Cup Hall of Fame. It's the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I do think, to Tanner's point that he was making as well, we do need some representation from those lower levels in the Hall of Fame. And I know Allgaier, obviously, we'll see with this interview that he just gave, kind of taking me by surprise here. I thought he had at least 3 to 5 more years. He's saying he might not even have 2 if he's not even going to do 60 or so more starts. I guess 65, if the math off the top of my head is right, to pass Kenny Wallace as the all-time leader again. Of course, Jeremy Clements is on that trajectory as well. We'll see how long it takes him to get there. But we'll keep our eye on that. That's going to be something interesting to monitor here. Maybe if he wins a second championship this year and goes back to back, he might just make that the ultimate mic drop and decide to walk away there. But to Tanner's point as well, these are 3 wins here in the first 14 races of the season. Saw some people talking this weekend. This might be the best version of Justin Allgaier that we've ever seen. So if he can continue, much like we were talking about with Team Penske, riding this momentum all the way through to the end of the year, I think he's got a very good shot at going back to back and winning that second championship. All right, I'm going to take. Let's see if we can. StreamYard just changed their graphics locations around here, so I'm going to actually take Tanner off the screen here and allow him however much time he needs. Obviously, we mentioned just a few minutes ago his dog's acting up a little bit, so we want to give him whatever space he needs to take care of that. But in the meantime, we'll move on. And staying on this topic, an interesting tweet came out this week from Adam Stern and the Sports Business Journal. Here we go. Kyle Larson, the leading NASCAR driver in merchandise sales halfway through the 2025 regular season. That's news to a lot of us. So I think assumed that Chase Elliott will be there once again. But if you take a look at the list attached in the article, the number 1 slot just the NASCAR brand, but then among active drivers, Kyle Larson has overtaken Chase Elliott. And look at who is 8th through 10th on the list there as well. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who is still racing in late models, of course, but has been retired from full-time competition for several years now. Justin Allgaier, the Xfinity Series driver we were just talking about, and Dale Earnhardt Sr. in the mix there as well in the top 10. Matthew responded to this, also ranking ahead of the drivers he lists below in a tweet that he was following up on, is one of Junior's Xfinity drivers, Justin Allgaier. I think Major League Baseball would likely have an issue if a AAA player ranked higher than revenue sales than Freddie Freeman, Paul Skeens, or Francisco Lindor. This was him following up to making a note of Earnhardt Sr. and Jr. being ranked ahead of a 2-time Daytona 500 winner, the only driver from Mexico, both of Michael Jordan's drivers, a driver that won 3 straight races this year and a 50-plus race winner. And yet no one admits that this sport has an Earnhardt problem. So that's our friend Matthew Owens. I see Tanner Smith has joined us here once again. But Brandon, I'll go to you first again on this one. Do you see a problem with NASCAR having 2 non-active drivers and one of their second-tier series drivers in the Xfinity Series ranked that high on the merchandise sales list?
Well, if we want to compare it to stick and ball, which the precedent is here that we already talked about baseball there, I can see if the NBA had merchandise haulers outside the arena, I would venture to say there's probably 2 or 3 dedicated to Kobe Bryant, to Michael Jordan, to all of those legendary greats. And so, it's that those have their place, right? Like it's okay to have a Dale Jr. and a Dale Sr. at every weekend, even if they're not active drivers. But that, it is a problem with kind of how high they rank up there. And I know we're specifically talking about Justin Allgaier being 9th in that ranking there, and how he essentially is a AAA affiliate of Hendrick Motorsports. So, which is the New York Yankees. So, it all circles around. But yeah, that is a little bit of an issue, and it's kind of a longer problem of the big retirement age of the late 2010s into, well, actually early 2010s into, all through the 2010s, we had so many legends and Hall of Famers retire all around the same time. Boom, 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 boom. And it was like 2018 when we were just looking around and like all these young faces and no one to lead them. And we're waiting for the next big thing. And Chase Elliott was basically the heir apparent. And then everyone else is like, hi, I'm William Byron. And we're like, who are you? But, I'm the face of the 24 car now. Nice to meet you, But, we know who he is now. He's a 2-time Daytona 500 winner. And, a lot of Ryan Blaney made a good name for himself there coming out of the Wood Brothers his rookie year and winning at Pocono. And, the rest is history. Now he's one of the top in sales there in the merchandise haulers, sitting at number 6. But, yeah, it is a big problem to have some of those there. But at the same time, on the positive side, it is good to see names like Daniel Suarez, Tyler Red. Daniel Suarez has his amigos, that they gotta be high up there on that list. And then it's good to see ones like Tyler Reddick, to me, and Ross Chastain gain following. That shows to me that it's a little healthier than we might be leading it on to be. When I don't know, maybe I don't want to call them secondary names, but didn't have air. Well, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have heirs. They didn't have their dad didn't race, and now they're here. Like they came through, and Chastain being from the watermelon generations, a family member generations in Alva, Florida. That to see him do so well in merchandise sales is a very healthy sign for me. So a little bit on both sides there on this.
Yeah, so I obviously see Junior being at 8th, Dale Sr. being at 10th. I don't really have a problem with either of that, to be honest with you. I know that might sound a bit contrarian, but listen, Dale Earnhardt is ubiquitous to the sport of NASCAR, and he always will be. It's just how it's going to be until the end of time, until the sport ceases to exist. Dale Earnhardt was a NASCAR driver, and to a lot of people was probably the best. His son was probably the most popular NASCAR driver that's ever existed, and he still has a super active platform within the sport as an Xfinity Series team owner, as a broadcaster, as a podcaster, and he's still running late models. So to some extent, I get why they'd be. Yeah, see, Ben, you're part of the problem.
Yeah. And he has a few more Xfinity starts left in him. He said in the media center.
He dropped that bomb too this weekend.
Yeah. Which he even acknowledged when he threw that out there that it would be something that he'd probably miss and inevitably want to do again. So, I don't really feel like that's that big of an issue. And as far as Allgaier is concerned, being, among this list, we also have to consider that, this is part of a year where Allgaier started the year with a Daytona 500 entry and sold an exceptional amount of Cup stuff that is still being bought. In fact, I went to my local short track, and I can't tell you how many Travelers whiskey shirts that I saw with the number 40 on it. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I have a feeling that Allgaier's bump has to be in part not only because he's part of Dale Jr.'s team, but because he is the defending Xfinity Series champion, and he ran in the Daytona 500 in a highly publicized entry for Dale Jr. So
he did
very well, finished 9th. So, you look at the other names on this list. I mean, the top 7 are current drivers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of. Wait, I might be miscounting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The NASCAR brand is number 1, so I guess that's just generic NASCAR merch. So it's 6 drivers, and then Senior Allgaier Senior, 5 more Cup drivers after them.
Everybody but Ross here in the top 6 is a champion of the sport in the highest division, and Ross has been a big contender for the title in several years among several series and has a very definitive brand from his one extremely viral moment. Plus his celebration is, rife for merchandise sales as well. So I don't really see this as much of a problem, but what I do see as a problem is that we have the top two being the two top Hendrick cars. Let's call it what it is. Alex Bowman's nowhere on this list. William Byron is super low compared to someone like Ross, who has less wins, less accolades than him. Obviously, I would have felt like Daniel Suarez and Bubba Wallace probably would have been a bit higher, but I'm encouraged to see that Christopher Bell is rising, Denny Hamlin as well. I feel like until 2017, Denny Hamlin hadn't really done anything to like ruffle feathers or really make people feel one way or the other about him. And then Martinsville came along and he quit.
He ripped that apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He kind of tore his way out of being kind of like, in the fans like center ground. He was kind of a neutral person to fans. So yeah, I guess, kind of taking a look at, who all consists of the top 14, because that's what's being shown here. We're not going to talk about the NASCAR brand as part of this, but I'm more encouraged by it because I would have felt like even Jeff Gordon or Richard Petty would have populated somewhere in here, Jimmy Johnson. But no, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, the Earnhardt name is kind of ubiquitous when it comes to the sport of NASCAR, and I just don't feel like they're ever going to completely trickle out of this because the 3 means something to people. Like, you'd go 3 for Dale, you raise hell, or you praise Dale, you raise hell and praise Dale, like he is just somebody that is always going to be part of what we do, no matter how far divorced we are from his time in the sport. So, like, while it's not great that former drivers are populating in the top 10 of sales, at the same time, you kind of have to weigh it a certain way because of who they were and what they meant to the sport. And yeah, the day that Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Dale Earnhardt Sr. are not part of that list is the day that I'm probably going to be a little bit more concerned about the future of the sport and what its merch sales look like, because I could get into a whole thing about how Fanatics is part of the problem here.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go there because it's really going to extend the length of this show. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at the fact that we have so many current Cup guys that are in the top 15. I think that's a really promising sign, and it could be a lot worse with like Gordon merch, Richard Petty merch, Jimmy Johnson merch, etc., still being pressed and released now, especially with brands like Home Field doing collaborations with certain teams and revitalizing their kind of like legacy products. Like Hendrick has Tim Richmond like as kind of like part of their line, and I've seen some of Tim Richmond stuff still sold at the races. So
Davey Allison too has some
classic
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So like I feel like it could be a lot worse, and maybe that might not be the right approach, but at the same time, like I wouldn't get too concerned. Like I would have thought that Christopher Bell wouldn't have been on this list because I just don't really see a whole lot of his merch at the track, but I haven't been to the track this year, so maybe that's changed.
I'm going to pull a Kyle Petty here, and let me just say this.
All right.
Okay, now that I've said that, I think maybe to speak more towards Matthew's point of he has the problem with the Earnhardt name having so much of a stranglehold, maybe give it, I think maybe more decades away, we might not be having the same problem. I mean, it still is pretty recent, the whole Earnhardt saga being over for Dale Sr. and Dale Jr.'s legacy. Just finished full-time racing in 2017 from the Cup level. It's still pretty fresh on folks' mind. Now, when I think of someone like Richard Petty, and I'd look around a sample size of the grandstands, I'm not seeing a bunch of Richard Petty gear, like people all decked out in Richard Petty gear. Now, sure, he's around. We're celebrating the anniversaries of Petty Enterprises and this and that, but I don't see a problem with people still just the King Richard Petty till the day I die sort of folks. Like those people have. Well, let's be real. They're not with us anymore. I mean, as the decades go on and on, I feel like the quote unquote stranglehold that we feel with the Earnhardt saga is going to fade a little bit,
Well,
and someone else will take its place. There might be a Busch saga with Kyle and Brexton. There might be a Kevin and Keelan.
yeah, especially after this weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's up and coming for sure.
Yeah, well, and to your point, Brandon, there's a lot of layers to what Matthew tweeted. And I guess like I understand the point that he's trying to make, and I agree with it to an extent. If Dale Jr. was still number one, for example, or if he were top 3 or even top 5, I would think it would be a little more cause for concern. But to Tanner's point, I'm encouraged to see a lot of those drivers up there. I think it means that it's moving kind of in the right direction, so to speak. I will, on that note, Brandon, point out you can check out who finished 19th in the Xfinity race. Jeffrey is still out there, so it's not like the Earnhardt name has completely disappeared from this sport. And who knows if his girls are going to want to race? That's a conversation for well down the line here.
That's a really good finish for him, by the way. I completely missed that he finished that well. Awesome job.
Yeah, he's hanging in there with the opportunities he's getting. But
also, he had the dog whisperer with him as a special guest. He had
Cesar Millan.
Caesar was
my
in.
God.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like, there he is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, just and to the comparison that Matthew made, because I love making stick and ball sports comparisons when it comes to this sport, right? But I told him this. I think it is a little apples and oranges here, because when you think about NASCAR Cup, there's 34 usually. There's a couple of charter teams I feel like that usually run a rotation of drivers, but 34 to 36 full-time Cup Series names that you're buying merchandise for. And that's it. Whereas if you go to Major League Baseball, you have a whole 40-man roster and you've got 30 teams, and it's even bigger in a sport like the NFL. And even in the NBA, there's 30 teams with 15 guys. There's 450 jerseys to choose from. And, there's a lot more competition there. I think it's a lot harder for, say, Michael Jordan to be top 10 in jersey sales, for example. But the thing in NASCAR is you also have individualized hats and die cast, like I just mentioned. And this is another part of it too. I mean, Junior is still racing to an extent. So like Tanner said, I am part of the problem here.
And the Budweiser deal the Anheuser-Busch deal has been revived with the late model action. So
yeah. And Kevin's still getting die casts out there with the one-offs he's doing in the Cars Tour as well. So it's, again, I don't think it's just a Dale Earnhardt Jr. thing. Obviously, Junior has the largest fan base still collectively, and that's why he's so high on that list. But does Justin Allgaier driving for Junior Motorsports give him a little bit of a boost? I'm sure it does. But I also think, to Tanner's point, I don't know if Allgaier would have cracked the top 10 this year had he not run the Daytona 500 and done quite well in it, to Brandon's point, and had he not been the defending Xfinity Series champion. I think if there was ever a year for Allgaier to be ranked this high, the time is now, so to speak. So again, if he were higher on this list, and also if these were, like, I'll just, no disrespect, but I'll throw Frankie Muniz's name out there. If Frankie Muniz was top 10 in NASCAR merchandise sales, with how much he has struggled in the Truck Series this year, I know he's driving for a smaller team and is a little bit down on experience, and certainly has had his fair share of bad luck. But if that were the situation, like, Frankie Muniz is a big name because he's an actor, right? He's an A-list celebrity to many people, and they see that he's running NASCAR and they're flocking to buy his merch and rep him, in terms of a fashion trend or whatever, and that leads him to outsell Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson in merchandise. Then I think we have a bit of a problem. What does that say about where NASCAR is, in terms of pop culture, where it ranks in the eyes of a lot of people there? But Dale Earnhardt Jr. being the seventh best selling driver when it comes to merchandise, I think, to the points that both of you made. If anything, I'm a little surprised that it's not higher, and I think it is good for the sport that it seems to be trending in that direction, where the younger drivers, who we've been saying for years, like, they lack the personality, they're not as outgoing, they don't do as much media like the drivers of the 90s or 2000s did. When are they going to achieve that household name, sports superstar status? Maybe this is a sign that things are trending more towards that direction than they were 5 years ago, and I can only come away with positive thoughts on the back end of that.
Well, just you wait till Cletus McFarlane gets this first Dodge Ram deal for 2026.
That could open up a whole can of worms there as well.
Look at your list after that, and we'll see.
We'll keep an eye on that.
He might be the first truck driver I've seen in the last 6 years to actually have merch at the track. So that would be something. And to kind of bounce off of something Ben said earlier, it's not actually 36 drivers that have their merch at the tracks. I can personally tell you, I've been to the track every year for the last 6 years. Teams I have never seen merch for: JTG/Hayek, Spire, any of the rides that Corey LaJoie has been in, whether it be with Rick Ware, Spire, Go Fast before that, like the Timmy Hill MBM Garage 66 team, they never have anything. Like a lot of teams, Kaulig hardly ever has anything at the track. Like a lot of these teams, like some of the smaller ones, they really just don't have the budget. Maybe they don't have the deal with fanatics necessary to push product out. I don't know what it is, but really we're talking about closer to 20 to 25 guys that have their stuff at the track, and some assorted Xfinity Series stuff. And that's still, again, with mostly the big teams that have an offshoot, like JRM to Hendrick, JGR's Xfinity team, Haas factory team having, the Ford outfit basically. And the trucks, they don't have anything. So frankly, I'm just really impressed that someone like Justin Allgaier is even touching this list, because it is so rare to see any of their merch at the track to be bought that I didn't even think it was possible for this to happen. But again, the factors that we listed earlier, the fact that he was in the 500 and ran well, raced his way in there. Not only that, you have him winning the Xfinity Series championship last year and his car owner being the biggest name in the sport over the last quarter century. It's a absolutely perfect formula for him to bounce back into the top 10 here. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like these merch sales, I don't even know if they're a real definitive way to explain a driver's popularity or not. So I guess I'll just leave it at that. But I don't really think the Earnhardt name is something that really has a stranglehold over fans. It's just, it's part of who we are. Like Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty, like you said, Brandon, Richard Petty's name and his likeness have kind of faded away as some of those fans that were around for his time have kind of faded out, whether it be one reason or another. So yeah, I just feel like eventually we'll move away from, talking about the Earnhardts and move on to whoever is the next legacy team, next legacy family in this sport.
Yeah, I just think we're not far away enough yet. And I really think those things take not years, but decades to run their course. I think we're still feeling those the shock waves and aftermath. And if nothing else tells you, just look at this brand new Earnhardt documentary that
literally
is the best one we've ever had.
Yeah. And just one final point, I think, again, our sport is very unique. And, obviously, if you want to compare it to AAA baseball in terms of where it ranks on the ladder, trying to work your way up to the top series, then that's fine, I think. But the Xfinity Series this year, especially on the CW, it's on network TV every week. I think, objectively speaking, gets more coverage than any AAA baseball team that I can think of. The only way that I could see a AAA baseball player breaking into the top 10 is if maybe Tim Tebow were still playing. It would take a figure like that. And even then, I don't know if Tebow ever got that high in terms of jersey sales for the Mets affiliates that he was playing with. So we'll leave it there. Obviously, much more to this conversation. I'm sure we'll continue to follow up on it as the year goes on, depending on how Allgaier performs. Real quick, Brandon, I know I showed this while Tanner was talking, but do you have any comment on what Racing World TV has to say here?
Hi, Racing World TV. I would say this, that Alex Bowman he's probably in the, as Junior would call it, the explicitive car of Hendrick Motorsports. Because, when you have a max number of teams in an organization, yes, they're all running the same stuff, but let's be real, they're not all getting the same stuff in proportion. And it's pretty apparent which one's getting the short end of the stick. I think it is that 48 punch. And it's nothing against Alex's talent behind the wheel. There's a reason everyone in the Cup Series. I don't care if they're a pay ride or not. There's a reason that they're there in one way or another. But yeah, he probably, it may not be, it wouldn't surprise me if eventually he does change into a different chapter of his racing career away from Hendrick Motorsports. How soon or how far away that is, I have no idea. But it wouldn't, if things don't improve, it could be a possibility. That's just the nature of things.
I think Spire Motorsports is starting to show that they can win races, and I actually think that someone of Bowman's caliber, maybe swapping with Hocevar, might actually help boost that team's profile and make them a multi-win organization rather than just maybe once every couple of years. So the driver of the number 48 will be something to watch coming into the summer. I know that last year Justin Haley was signed at Chicago to potentially take over the 48 car at some point, but that's clearly not looking good. So as long as Alex Bowman continues to work really hard with Blake Harris, his crew chief, to improve and win a race, get into the playoffs every year, I think it'll be hard to kick him out of the car, especially with how well Ally thinks of him as a
that'll do it. Yeah.
And plus, he looks like Brandon Crossland. So he's got everything going for him right now. He's just got to, show up and continue to win races. And I do think his 2 wins in the next gen car through 3 seasons is not the greatest record for Hendrick Motorsports equipment, but Chase Elliott hasn't really done a whole lot either since he won 6 races in 2022. So I just think that there's something wrong with the 9 and 48 portion of the shop compared to the 5 and 24 that Hendrick Motorsports themselves need to really get handled.
I've learned that my hair gives me 2 phases, the Alex Bowman phase and then the poof. And then you just start, rinse and repeat, start over.
There you go. All right, let's move along here. Let's talk about the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race and a thrilling battle for the win between Rajah Caruth, Corey Heim, Lane Riggs, all of the top 3 under a blanket there in the closing laps. And what I think, quite frankly, one of the most impressive drives of the season. Caruth able to hold the championship favorite Corey Heim off. We've been talking all year about how Corey Heim really could have twice as many wins as he has so far this year. Things gone slightly differently for him, and he already has a handful of wins to begin with. So he has been the driver to beat all year, and Caruth had to beat him, outdrive him on Friday night. That's exactly what he did. Tanner, was this the most impressive victory of the season to you?
In the Craftsman Truck Series, probably so, because most of it has been Corey Heim getting out to the lead and cruising away. But this week, the script was flipped. So Corey Heim had to do a little bit of the chasing, and you really got to tip your cap to Rajah Caruth and that entire number 71 Spire Motorsports team. They really lit up every time that they went down pit road and got their driver out fast, and that driver drove that truck real fast the entire last run of the race. It's kind of interesting that the way it played out was a little bit similar to his win at Vegas last year, where he kind of stayed in the top 5 for much of the day, and then he really capitalized when given an opportunity. And I really appreciated that this year in this race, he had to really go toe-to-toe with Riggs and Heim especially, because I think we can all agree that kid is a cup level talent already. To go out there and show your stuff on a national stage and to do it, in front of Cup Series team owners the way that he did, and to hold off a cup level prospect so well and so deftly, I think it's going to really help boost Rajah's profile going forward. And I've always kind of advocated that he is someone that has cup level potential, and he really showed it the other night by going out there and winning the race the way he did. Being able to hold off 2 of the hungriest drivers in the series is absolutely impressive. And if it isn't just the best performance thus far in the Truck Series this year, it might even be one of the most impressive in all of NASCAR.
I was so glad to for that to be the weekend that he snaps the 31 races from Las Vegas in 2024, and to be a part of that. And yeah, Kobe saying that Stephen A. Smith gave Rajah Caruth a shout out there on ESPN on First Take. So big ups to Rajah getting some ESPN coverage on that. But yeah, it was, and I have to imagine in one of his 6 books of notes that he described, there has to be one of those books that is aero blocking 101, because the way I see that he flipped the script is that runs in the truck series, like the way Heim was catching him, like 9 times out of 10, that ends up with Heim able to overtake him at some point. But I don't know how Rajah did it, but he was able to work his truck in such a way that Heim was not able to get up to it, up to the back tailgate. And so Heim complained about just the air, that he wasn't able to manipulate it in his favor, and that I mean Rajah just played a really good chess match there in the last few laps there at Nashville Superspeedway. And we talked about it all weekend. The concrete surface, it's the biggest one on the circuit, and it's really it demands precision, because little corrections can end up being big mistakes, as we saw through most of stage 2 in the Cup race. It was pretty wild there for a little bit. But yeah, Rajah Caruth, he's got a master class in aero blocking. There is what I took from that off of Corey Heim, and also to take on Corey Heim and Lane Riggs, the two that were trying to say that these are the 2 top guys of the series this year, the top ones for the title, and Rajah back in it for Spire this year.
Yeah, not to take away from what Rajah did, but I texted one of my group chats that I'm in. I think he owes Lane Riggs a Christmas card, because I think the fact that he battled so heavily with Corey Heim there certainly helps take some of that momentum away from Corey. But I thought it was a matter of when, not if, watching those final 5 laps in particular, that Heim would get by him and just rack off yet another win. But for Rajah to drive as well defensively as he did, I think speaks very highly of the talent that he has as well. And all 3 of these guys, to be quite honest, put on quite a show. Any of the 3 of them, as far as I'm concerned, could have won had things gone slightly differently, or could have been in any order there. It was a great battle to watch, and Brandon, certainly glad that you were there to see it live in person. So we'll keep an eye on all 3 of these drivers as the season goes on. One final thing I want to follow back up on for the Xfinity Series here real quick. We saw Daniel Dye get disqualified at the end of the Xfinity Series race. This comes on the same weekend that AJ Allmendinger's Cup team got in very hot water, a crew member having his hard car taken away, a penalty before they went out to run their qualifying lap, and he had to do a stop and go at the start of the race. I'll give each of you just a minute or 2 here. Brandon, we'll start. What are your thoughts on the current state of Kaulig Racing with these penalties this weekend to Daniel Dye and AJ Allmendinger? Yeah,
the fact that it happened to both of them happening with Kaulig Racing is pretty sad, and it's I guess it's showing that there's something a little deeper going on here with someone or something that they have here in the preparation of these race cars that is, in one weekend getting snagged twice. So once, luckily for AJ Allmendinger, it was before the race and he was able to still go and compete. But for Daniel Dye, unfortunately, it took I think it was a 10th place finish. I think it was a 10th place finish for him that was put back to
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
In or around the top 10.
Yeah. But yeah, it shows some not good things there for Kaulig Racing.
I'm frankly impressed Allmendinger was able to get back up into the top 20, because he was really on the back foot from when the race even started there. Tanner, what are your thoughts on the current state of Kaulig?
Yeah, I kind of touched upon this in either the Grid pre-race show yesterday. I believe that's when it was. But my thoughts are this. Teams in motorsport have to push the envelope in order to compete. So unfortunately, sometimes you're going to get caught. Obviously, you don't want to get double dinged in the same weekend. It's not typically a great thing. Ask Andretti Autosport. But yeah, I feel like with Daniel Dye, we've seen the 10-car at Kaulig have this problem before with a low rear ride height. Thinking back to Landon Castle at New Hampshire when he nearly won that race. Raced for them, same exact penalty. So wasn't too surprised there. Obviously, again, you're trying to find as much grip, find as much of an advantage as you can. And unfortunately, sometimes you'll push the envelope a little too far and rip it. So as far as AJ's crew member is concerned, from what I understand, he jumped on the splitter after post qualifying tech. So yeah, that just seems like a really dumb thing to do in sight of cameras in front of a bunch of other people. So hopefully this will be a lesson to him that if you're going to jump on that thing, don't do it. Don't do it in front of God and everybody. So it'll be a pretty big inconvenience for that team the rest of the season to have him head out to the credentials hauler and have to wait in line like all of us other commoners.
No, and that's a bubble playoff team too, so especially troubling for them. But again, fortunate, I guess, that AJ was able to make up as much ground as he was during the race there. So one more comment from Nicholas here, and then we'll move on to a quick open wheel recap. I'm a little bit worried about Daniel Suarez. Like, where is he going to go? I would hope he does stay at Trackhouse, but if not, I hope he drives for Dale Earnhardt Jr. in Xfinity next year. Well, he's going to be driving for him in just a couple of weeks, right, at the race in Mexico City. So maybe there's a relationship being started there, and who knows what might happen. But yeah, Chastain's obviously still been hanging in there and putting in some good runs, but you look at their other two drivers, Suarez certainly not off to the best start of the season that he would have wanted. Aside from Vegas, I guess he had a good run there, and SVG likewise at Circuit of the Americas. But of course, we expect that from him on the road courses. So we'll see if they can get their season turned around here the second half of the regular season as we approach the playoffs here. Let's move on here and do a quick rundown and recap of some open wheel results here for everybody. Indy next on the streets of Detroit, joining the IndyCar Series here. Not too much of a shocker in terms of who picked up the win. Once again, Dennis Allgaier, somebody who I think is going to be high on the silly season list for 2026 if there's an opening there. You talk about what Alex Palou was doing in IndyCar. I think Dennis Allgaier doing something here very similar in Indy next, kind of running away, making the championship a one-man show here. Unfortunate for some drivers getting caught up in incidents at the start of the race. Miles Rowe, you see down there in 18th. Haley Deegan still trying to get up to speed in 16th. But the front of the field, there's seemingly no debate in terms of who the championship favorite is right now in Indy next. We'll move on and talk about Formula 3 and Formula 2 this weekend in Spain. And you can pause if you want to see where your favorite driver was running here if you follow these series. But congratulations to Ivan Dominguez, the first Portuguese Formula 3 winner for what he did in the sprint race. And then in the feature, it was Rafael Camara, who not only won the feature race, but continues to lead the F3 championship. And we'll take you on to the back third of the feature race results there. In Formula 2, Richard Verschoor picking up his second win of the year. And despite what some think about him still being in this series with how experienced he is and the lack of his name coming up in Formula 1 discussions, second in the championship right now. It looks like if he could keep this pace up, maybe he would be a legitimate championship contender. But of course, there is still much of the season left to run. Alex Dunn leads the standings right now. You see him second in the sprint race, but it was Arvid Lindblad, as we pull up the feature results here, that got the win over Sebastian Montoya. That's a name that should be familiar to race fans, as well as for sure picking up another podium there. And Jack Crawford, fourth in the sprint, fourth in the feature, fourth in points right now behind Dunn, Verschoor, and Lindblad. So championship battle heating up in Formula 2. We'll keep our eye on that, and hopefully we'll be able to get Josh or Romy back on later in the season to get their thoughts on what's happening in that series. But that's your quick open wheel rundown, and that's going to be our show for tonight once we get through our one shining moments. So, Tanner, since you're our guest, I'll let you go first. What was the one thing that stood out to you from this weekend in Nashville?
Obviously, Rajah Caruth put on a fantastic performance, but I believe one of our other panelists might be more excited to chat about that. So I'm going with Ryan Blaney. I feel like that team has had pace all year, as I displayed in our previous segment about them. And it was frankly very relieving for someone like me who has picked them, I believe, 4 or 5 times to win this year, to finally see them break open the goose egg and come out with a victory. So it's great to see one of the more rock star looking NASCAR drivers that we have, a guy that actually can sing and can play some instruments, come away with the big instrument, with the big guitar, at Nashville and get that victory. So hats off to the 12 team, Jonathan Hassler, for that great pit call in stage 1 and that exceptional pit call to put them on 2 tires there at the end of stage 1 to give them the lead that ultimately pretty much put them in the front the rest of the race. So shout out to Ryan Blaney and the entire number 12 Team Penske crew.
Yeah, for sure. And I compare that with Rajah Caruth. Whenever he was asked about the guitar, he's like, I can't play it. I guess he's not going to use it for musical purposes, but it'll make a great item in a trophy case for sure. So mine has to go to one that I kind of agree with Jeff Gluck this weekend, talking about Denny Hamlin. And it was the news in our circle about his 700th start at coming at Nashville in the Cup Series. And looking back to the Coke 600 weekend, Mr. 7-time Jimmy Johnson, his 700th start was very much celebrated. You know, it had a lot going on from the sanctioning body themselves making a big deal about it. But if I feel like Hamlin did not get, we feel like he deserved a little more respect from not just the fans, but also the sanctioning body to like even just recognize, hey, this is Denny Hamlin's 700th start. Did you know that? You know, and he almost didn't get to start his 700th start because he's going to be a father of another child here within moments or days, whenever that's coming. So that also happening in the background, but the 700 start, he ties with his finish at Nashville, 3rd place, tying Jeff the best finish in a 700th start. The last one to do that was Jeff Gordon with his 3rd place finish at Michigan, and I think that was
the prime broadcast in 2013.
2013. Okay, that's better. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking Phoenix 2009. That's a different milestone for Gordon. So, yeah, Michigan 2013, matching that 3rd place finish in a 700th start. So put some more respect on Denny Hamlin here for number 700.
Yeah. Well, I know, Tanner, you and I had that conversation a couple of months ago on this very show about what Denny's still doing in his early to mid-40s, and maybe not being particularly surprised by it as much as some fans are. I think he does deserve a little bit more credit and respect for what he's continuing to do here.
Although there might be a reason that the sanctioning body is not, talking about his accomplishments too much. So.
Might be.
There you go.
There's some things going on.
Might be a Jeffrey Kessler shaped reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Yeah, but that's a whole can of worms, as is this year. I do want to catch up on the chat quickly. Ben, what's your take on what Max Verstappen did to George Russell? I just replied in the chat while Tanner was answering, not amused, but not surprised either. And we're going to be here all night if I go any further, so I'll leave it there. Kobe has one shining moment, though, for you, Brandon. Your excellent coverage at Nashville. Really enjoyed it and hope you know you belong with the best of them. Hope you get more opportunities soon. Certainly seconded right here from me. So,
kind words. Thank you, Kobe.
Yeah, congratulations on a great opportunity this weekend. Certainly made the most of it. My one shining moment, to Tanner's point as well. How can you not say Rajah Caruth? And I think, Brandon, you would probably echo that sentiment as well. Great run for that young man. And I think, to Tanner, your point as well, I think has a very bright future in this sport. And I think he proved it last night with going head-to-head with a guy that I think in a perfect world would be racing in Cup probably this year, if we're being honest. But certainly we would hope by next year that there's a ride open for him with the job he did. Unfortunately, what happened to him in that 67 car, that 4:23.11 car in the Cup race. But nonetheless, I think he's shown the speed in the Cup opportunities that he's gotten, and certainly what he's doing in trucks right now. And for Rajah Caruth to take the fight to him and come out on top speaks very highly of him as well. So congratulations to him. That is certainly worthy of a shining moment in my estimation. And that is going to do it for us on the Encore show tonight. So thank you all so much for sticking with us. It's amazing how time flies, right? You say you want to try to keep it close to an hour. We still end up going.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost Ben. Well, as he was saying, we lose track of time, so we'll stall time until he comes back. But it was a great show indeed. There he is.
I
tried him up.
So StreamYard has changed their layout a little bit. I tried scrolling down to get to the Patreon graphics, and instead of scrolling down, I scrolled to the left or right or one of those, and it took me it thought that I wanted to go back to my previous page of my browser, so it kicked me to the home page of StreamYard for a second. But I'm back now. It's not my internet for once. That one is on me. But thank you guys for stalling for whatever that was, the 10 seconds that I was out here. But on that note, while we're thanking people, want to thank our Patreon investors, as I was trying to say here. Thank you all for sticking with us, even though we did go over a little bit over an hour here tonight. Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, your support continues to mean the world to us. And we just want to take another moment again to thank you all and say, if you like what you saw this evening, you want to consider joining them. You can take a few minutes after the show. The link is in the description box below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you'd rather make a one-time contribution to us instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee page that we have, or tip us through YouTube Super Chat or Super Thanks. And as always, the best thing you can do is follow us on all our social media platforms, X/Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, whatever microblogging platform you are on these days. We are on all three, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn. And like I said, hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps us out quite a lot. And also visit our newly relaunched website, gridnetworktv.com. Lots of great content there. So make sure you check that out as well. Now, taking a look at our upcoming schedule, Grid tonight with Kobe Lambeth, Josh Birch, and Matt White will be back on Wednesday. Tanner, I know you're continuing on with our new NASCAR pre-race show format that we've got this year. You guys are doing a great job, so make sure you all stay tuned for that. New episode of Women in Motorsports coming, if not this week, I would hope certainly by next. So make sure you stay tuned for that schedule as well. The Grid Live format coming back this weekend, and then we'll see you right back here on a 167-hour break, as Tony Reale might say. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off for the evening here on the Encore show?
Yeah, just want to thank you, gentlemen. Really enjoyed the show tonight. And some of my final thoughts, breaking today or this afternoon, Corey LaJoie, 9 races in the number 07 Spire truck, starting with Michigan this coming weekend. So from drinking beer in the Amazon Prime post-race show to back in the truck, baby, with Spire Motorsports. Corey LaJoie back to the racetrack, 9 races, including this weekend. And then also, you need to be following Dodge Ram if you're not already on Twitter, because June 8th seems to be a very special day. That might be they might be revealing the Dodge Ram 1500 program for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series on Michigan race weekend.
Would be a fitting place to do it. Tanner, any final thoughts from you?
I just hope Corey LaJoie has fun in front of his 12 fans.
No offense, but you know what's funny about that? He posted like
an AI
something
image
about it, and it was like an AI image of 1107 fans, and I don't know. You're just like you're setting yourself up with pictures like that. I'm sorry, but
I wasn't going to go there, but yeah, that did happen as well. I know Corey was asking what we thought of the Prime coverage. I think we've been pretty universal in that. I think fans are really seeming to enjoy that. But yeah, he is. Yeah, he did kind of walk into that one, I think, with that image he posted. And also, I have to say, if not even Kyle Busch can seem to get the job done in that 07 program, you know, we've seen some big names in that truck this year. You know, we'll see what Corey can do. But Kyle didn't have such a great night on Friday night. I think that surprised some people. But I just want to say real quick as well, congratulations to Regina Servant. Some news that broke today as well. She will finally be making her ARCA debut in the number 68 for Kimmel Racing. I know she had a deal with Venturini, if not last year, the year before that, to run a partial schedule. Unfortunately, that fell through, but she's getting that opportunity this weekend, and we wish her the best of luck in that. For Tanner Smith and for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We will see you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.